Week 5, Travis Anderson, Stacey Heyer, Jaron Freckleton, Welby Reese. Apple closed the market on February 10, 2015 as the first company with a market value of over $700 billion. They also have an impressive amount of cash, $178 billion in cash to be exact. So why would a company with so much cash ever want to or feel the need to issue bonds? Apple's cash is largely overseas. They would be taxed heavily if they were to bring the cash back into the United States. It is a much cheaper option to issue bonds than it is to bring the cash into the United States. Apple is seemingly brilliant when it comes to timing the market. The day they issue $6.5 billion in bonds, the market just happens to have the lowest interest rate since May 2013. The cash is supposedly going to be used for share buybacks. This should make Carl Icahn happy. Pfizer announced that they will buy Hospira. Pfizer and Hospira are both pharmaceutical drug companies. Pfizer has struggled to compete with the generic drug companies who are cutting profits dramatically for Pfizer. Pfizer says that buying Hospira will allow them to compete with generic companies, especially with biotech drugs. Biotech drugs are developed using living cells. They are much more expensive to develop and produce. Pfizer hopes that the acquisition will make them more competitive in the biotech drug industry.
Economic conditions. German merger and acquisitions activity dropped 17.6% compared to 2014, which was highest on merger market record, with 798 transactions, beating the previous high of 740 set in 2013. Next, inflation in the Eurozone could remain below zero for some months to come. Also, in economic conditions, talk of Greece leaving the euro. A debt deal negotiated to rescue Greece has failed, and with those most responsible for agreeing to the terms outside of the nation's recent elections and Greek political leaders failing to cobble together a collaboration government to replace them. Tax development. New international tax system. Obama administration released its fiscal year 2006 budget proposals. Treasury estimates that the proposed one-time 14% tax on previously untaxed foreign earnings would increase revenue to $168 billion over the next decade. Also imposed a 19% minimum tax on foreign income. Also the tax reform that lowers statutory corporate tax to 28%.
There has been a lot of activity this week in investment banking. Here are a few articles I came across that I really enjoyed. The first had to do with the firm CIMB, and this article was how they shut down certain investment banking operations. CIMB is trying to cut costs by 30% in their investment banking division. They lay part blame to the capital markets of today, which points to an economic slowdown. The next article I wanted to talk about was Deutsche Bank cutting their bonus pool. 4% cuts were made at the securities unit, which is their biggest profit generator. Other divisions may see 10 to 15% cuts. Also, they have talk about replacing the head of their investment banking and trading unit. All of these indicators point to a slowdown in the economy for investment banking. The last article I want to talk about is investment bank expansions. Evercore Partners want to invest in Luminous Partners, hoping to expand their operations in Australia and New Zealand. They are thinking of investing a 20% stake in the company. More news to follow. The next topic I wanted to cover deals with new regulations and services introduced in the investment banking industry. The first article talks about how the EU is going to change their dark pool trading transparency. This will give higher transparency on dark pools, hopefully creating higher efficiency pertaining to pricing. This will also put caps on dark trades below a certain size. The next article I wanted to discuss talks about Goldman Sachs. Goldman is looking to buy a stake in a Turkey buyout firm. Goldman wants an 18% share to expand their business into Turkey. Also, they are going to offer Turkey a $100 million 5-year loan. Goldman now will be allowed to offer investment banking services in Turkey.
I'm Jaron Freckleton, and I'm going to be talking about global markets and the news that is following the commodity market. Investors are looking to the Eurozone finance ministers for clues on the tone of negotiations to deal with Greece's debt crisis. Discussions are about Greece's bailout, which expires at the end of the month. There is a lot of uncertainty, which is resulting in stocks to drop and slip downwards. There is little confidence and low expectations about a solution being agreed. The Greek finance minister will offer a plan to end his country's bailout, but the rest of the Eurozone, led by Germany, says Athens needs to push on with privatizations and spending cuts to keep getting funded. Kim Forrest, who is a senior equity research analyst at Fort Pitt Capital Group in Pittsburgh, said, "We all know what the big problem is. If the Greeks exit, so can others, and that would throw this whole Eurozone thing into disarray." Gold is sliding because of the strengthening of the dollar due to uneasiness in the Eurozone, as investors eye Greek debt talk as well. The dollar paused for breath after sharp gains and caution prevailed in financial markets ahead of a meeting of finance ministers that is set to discuss Greece's future in the Eurozone, as we talked about. The Fed is talking about raising interest rates in June, which means that the U.S. economy is strengthening and inflation will move back to the central bank's target. Raising interest rates could further strengthen the dollar. This could hurt even more on U.S. exports, being that other countries will have less demand to buy our exports. Oil slipped below $55 a barrel on Wednesday, pressured by an industry report saying U.S. crude stocks rose from a record high. Futures were down more than $2 to $54 a barrel. After more than halving since June, oil prices have rallied by over 20% in the last 4 weeks. Analysts are saying that crude prices could rise to $60 a barrel by the end of the year. Even though prices are expected to rise a little by the end of the year, most people are taking a bearish stance on the crude oil pricing. Adding further pressure on prices, the EIA kept its 2015 and 2016 domestic oil output forecast virtually unchanged from the previous month. The EIA expects U.S. oil production in 2015 to be 9.3 million barrels per day, slightly lower than the 9.31 million barrels per day forecast in last month's short-term energy outlook. Now I will be talking about some examples with LBO transactions. Private equity firms fought like cats and dogs over PetSmart, and the result is the biggest leveraged buyout of the year in 2014. Apollo Management had been poised to acquire PetSmart for $8 billion in a deal that included $6.25 billion in debt financing arranged by Citigroup and Barclays. That proposed financing package was equal to about 6.5 times PetSmart's EBITDA, or earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization, a figure exceeding a guideline of 6 times EBITDA set for leveraged buyouts by the Federal Reserve last year. Analysts, however, have questioned how easy it will be to reignite the company's stagnant sales amid growing competition with web-based retailers. Recent activity involves Staples and Office Depot. The end goal is a Staples acquisition of Office Depot. It is believed that it would generate nearly $1.5 billion in synergies by 2017. more than doubling the company's operating profits. Leading this is activist fund Starboard Value. Starboard is positioning to make a merger of Staples and Office Depot one of its top 2015 projects.
And here are the sources we used.
Like end.